morning and welcome to Asia Gaming Group's podcast series. Today I'm talking with Simon Fraser, who is Senior Vice President International for XBNet Global. We're going to be talking about the company's recent deal in India, where horse racing is now allowing online gambling. We'll also talk about some of the issues in the wider racing world.
Thanks very much for joining us, Simon. It's very nice to have you with us. We wanted to talk to you because you very recently announced a tie-up, an interesting tie-up with North Alley in India. Wondered whether you could start off by telling us a bit more about that.
Yeah, so the market in India has changed quite dramatically because of the lockdowns and the pandemic and so on. And that's allowed an opportunity for racetracks in India to take advantage of online. So the law has changed and they are now allowed to have both online customers and online customers bet on international racing. So that's a big change for them and for the racetracks in India, and North Alley are one of the main technical providers to the racetracks. They manage the tote systems and the betting systems on most of the racetracks across the country. And we have signed a deal with them to provide the content both from our partners in Victoria in Australia and also in North America to those racetracks and to the states that they work in as they roll it out across different states of India.
So Indians, can they bet directly online, or do they have to go to the track to bet online? How does that work?
They're now able to bet directly online.
Directly online. So that is a very big change.
Which is great for the racing industry in India, that instead of just having either people had to come on track or potentially bet offshore or with non-legal operators. So that opportunity is now there for the racetracks to take advantage of a legal market and to get to increase the size of their betting pools and their customer base as well.
How many race clubs are involved at present?
At present, we have 2, and then we're just working with another race club in Calcutta, which should go live, I think, this week, as it happens. And then we're looking to roll out across the other race clubs as the state legislation just approves racetracks and the online for international in the individual states.
What kind of size is the Indian racing industry at the moment in terms of betting turnover, and where do you see the potential?
It's very difficult to tell you what a legal number would be, or sorry, a total number, not necessarily a legal number for the betting industry, of horse racing in India, because I think a lot of it is probably on the black market or grey market. So I think there's it feels like the racing is consistent. There's local racing almost most days of the year. And there is a product there that people want to bet on, and if you go to the racetracks, there are crowds there of people watching the racing and having a bet. So the restrictions that were placed on the racetracks previously will being removed, which should hopefully grow that market. So I would expect it to be, is it going to be as big as Japan or the USA? No, it's not. But it's still, lots of people who are interested, placing lots of small bets that could generate turnover and generate decent sized pools.
And you're bringing in feeds from the US and Australia primarily. Where do you see the most interest from the Indians? What's the preference?
Time difference, really based on time difference. And Australia is a significantly better time difference than the North American market.
Right.
North American tracks. It all really is around generally when you're bringing in international content into other racing nations, it's what is a good time difference, what isn't competing necessarily against local racing. So the Australian racing will come before the local racing starts, and then the customers who are more knowledgeable and enthusiastic about the local racing will bet on the local racing, and once the local racing's finished, bet into European, African, and then hopefully North American racing later into the evening.
Right. I have always thought of racing as being sort of slightly antiquated, if you like, but it seems to be that it's very robust and growing industry, especially at most of the Asian markets in particular. What would you say about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think racing is fun, and it's a fun sport to bet on, and we're in the entertainment industry. And I think that's the key bit to remember. And there's a lot of it as well. So as much as, you hear about, during the pandemic, the wonders of Ukrainian table tennis, there's more horse races happening, and there's more, horse racing from a bookmaker point of view is often high turnover and can be high margin. So it's a strong product for bookmakers and for fixed odds bookmakers across the world, and then for tote operators as well. Again, it can be a high turnover, high margin product. So but it also offers customers an opportunity to win decent prizes, to win regularly, and particularly in countries where no in-running betting is legal, horse racing fills that gap very quick. You make the decision, the race starts, a minute and a half, 2 minutes later, the race is finished and you're paid out, or you get to look at the next race. So there's the gap horse racing can fill in the modern betting world. I think it's got a strong future.
Yeah, and is it appealing to younger people as well?
Yeah, I think that looks at how different jurisdictions and how different countries have reacted to appeal to different audiences. So if you look at particularly the Australian market or the UK market, the racecourses there have made and kept racing as an event, and you go racing for an event, particularly on the weekends and the big events, but also in Australia and the UK during the week to go meetings. And if you look at the crowds of people that say go racing in Hong Kong or Japan, the ages, it's all ages of people that go and watch the racing, and it is an event. So there is a feel that you're both at a sporting event, you're at a social event, and or you could just go to have a bet. And I think those countries have done a great job in that. Also, if you go racing in South America, there's lots of families there, so it's it's seen as a family event.
Nice. Okay. And you mentioned in-play betting a few questions ago. Is there no in-play betting in horse racing?
Funny you should answer that. Ask that. Yes, there is. It's something that is being very much developed at the moment. So we work very closely with a company called Total Performance Data, who have GPS chips in the horses on a number of our racetracks in North America, and working with them to develop algorithms to be able to produce fixed odds in running on the racing. And that they also have a number of tracks they supply in Europe, and they're producing in running fixed odds data streams on those races, and we're in the process of integrating with a number of bookmakers to try those. Now, in running really only works in fixed odds jurisdictions, not in pool betting jurisdictions. So in some of the racing jurisdictions, such as the US, Japan, it's going to be very difficult to offer fixed odds betting as they're effectively pool betting and pari-mutuel only territories. Where I think there is a good growth story and opportunity for in-running betting is in Australia, where in-running isn't legal on other sports, but it is legal on horse racing.
So you're head of international for XBet. Where next for you guys? What's another interesting opportunity?
So for us is really looking at what's happening with the various legislations in parts of South America, where again, some parts of Argentina have legislated now to allow international horse racing for the first time. There's obviously been talk around Brazil legislating on sports betting for a long time. We are keen to expand what we're doing in India and work with more of the race clubs, and kind of push that and kind of work out how we market that. And we see kind of potentially in the next 3 to 5 years, there's some opportunities in Africa, both kind of West Africa and across the continent, as kind of individual markets are become more mature. There's some opportunities, I think, there for the North American horse racing products and indeed Australia in the morning.
What about the rest of Asia? Some of these big markets that we've already talked about: Hong Kong, Japan, Singapore. No.
I think for us, from a North American point of view, the time difference is difficult. and also the legislation in lots of those. So if you look at Singapore and the big Hong Kong, Japan, they're very controlled by the racing organisations in those countries, and they have either limited number of international days they're legally allowed to take, or they have very strict controls on which races they can take. So in Japan, for instance, there has to be a Japanese runner of a certain standard in the race to be allowed, international race, to allow betting on those races. And South Korea doesn't allow any international racing there. And then outside of those kind of territories in Asia, lots of countries, betting is illegal.
Yeah.
And we don't work as a rule, we don't work in countries where betting is illegal. We don't kind of, those types of, we have a duty to protect the rights of our rights holders, and they're kind of, they are heavily regulated in the US. And so we don't work in any grey areas or with any kind of countries where the betting is illegal.
You said a few times, obviously, it's all about the horse. Do you guys create content around that to drive engagement with players? Or I know some people have got developing little documentaries to show the horses on the gallops and things like that. Do you do that? Are you involved in that sort of thing?
Yeah, I think we've done a lot of stuff, particularly around our big races, and there's always some of the better content often tends to be about horses that have previously won those races, or favourite horses within the industry, and that's some of the better content that people like to watch. That kind of almost historical content around where when you get the winners of the Preakness or the Belmont or the Kentucky Derby, and you see them at stud, you spend time with those horses, you kind of remember their careers. That tends to be really engaging content. But also the racing as a sport has so many great characters in it, as well as the horses. So the behind the scenes look pre-race of, this is what the horse's training regime in the week leading up to a big race is. This is the groom, this is the work rider. These are the people that are going to be the team to get this horse onto the track. And I think that content can be really engaging as well. And it kind of appeals to a big audience, because that is you're seeing the whole kind of training process of that individual horse. And then people want to see that horse, how it performs on the racetrack.
Thank you very much for joining us today, Simon. You've been listening to Simon Fraser, who is the Senior Vice President International at XBNet.